My name is Megan Mulholland from the University of Kansas. I'm here to present promises and challenges in teacher implementation of instructionally embedded assessments. This research was conducted by Atlas, also at the University of Kansas, and it was led by Dr. Amy Clark. I'm also joined by my colleague Jennifer Kobrin today, who's going to be here for moral support. So to begin, many education agencies are exploring the use of innovative assessment systems, which represent recent innovations in educational testing. They're typically designed to be instructionally relevant and aligned with existing academic standards. And although innovative assessments can include different kinds of assessments that are administered throughout the school year, they still produce the summative scores that are necessary to meet requirements for state accountability. The purpose of this presentation is to support those education agencies that are developing innovative assessments by sharing some insights and lessons that we've learned for teachers about implementing one type of innovative assessment system called instructionally embedded assessments. The dynamic learning maps instructionally embedded alternate assessment is administered to students in grades 3 through 8 and high school as an assessment of skill mastery for alternate content standards in English language arts, math, and science. As an innovative assessment model, the DLM instructionally embedded assessments prioritize flexibility, accessibility, and student outcomes. The instructionally embedded model has been operational since the 2014-2015 school year, and it's currently the accountability assessment in 6 states. It's also available for optional use in 15 additional states, which use a year-end model of the assessment for accountability purposes. So the instructionally embedded assessments are administered alongside instruction in 2 testing windows, one in the fall and one in the spring. Each testing window is approximately 15 weeks long, but the actual amount of testing time is determined by the state. Teachers select standards for instruction and assessment from the test blueprint in order to meet state and local testing requirements, and then each standard can be assessed at 5 complexity levels, which are determined by an underlying research-based learning map. Results from the instructionally embedded assessment are intended to inform instruction during the school year, and at the end of the year, they are compiled to produce summative performance scores that are used for accountability. Teachers use an online interface to select content, plan instruction, administer assessments, and view the assessment results. The interface, which is shown here, has been developed and refined over time into a format that we believe teachers find intuitive and useful. The current design of the interface was informed by multiple teacher cadre sessions and has been improved based on annual feedback from teachers that actually use the system. The interface allows teachers to access blueprint requirements, grade level content standards, which we call the essential elements, and the 5 complexity levels for each standard. Visual indicators in the layout show students' progress towards blueprint requirements, instructional plans that are in progress, assessments that are ready for administration, and mastery results for completed assessments. For this research, we had 4 research questions. Number 1, what are teachers' perceptions of the instructionally embedded assessment model? Number 2, what are teachers' perceptions of the instructional uses of the assessment model? Number 3, how do teachers use the instructionally embedded assessment results? And number 4, what are teachers' perceptions of the online system that's used for the instructionally embedded assessments? To answer these questions, we conducted 11 semi-structured focus group interviews with teachers who had administered the assessment during the 2020 and 2021 school year. The focus group protocol was developed to gain a detailed understanding of teachers' experiences with the instructionally embedded assessment model, and the focus group facilitators used both follow-up questions and paraphrasing to clarify respondents' intended meanings. During the focus groups, the participating teachers were asked to share some background on their teaching experience, their student caseloads, and their participation in DLM assessments, and then the teachers were asked questions specifically about their use of the instructionally embedded assessments. 30 teachers from 6 states participated in the focus groups. Our sample was mostly female and mostly white. 3 participants were African American and 1 was Hispanic. Although one of the participants came from states that use the instructionally embedded assessment model for state accountability, and the participating teachers came from rural, suburban, and also urban school settings with a range of teaching experience. The research team used a combination of inductive and deductive approaches to coding the focus group transcripts. We identified 29 codes across 4 coding categories, which aligned with the 4 research questions. Each member of the research team identified themes within one category, and then each category was reviewed by a different team member for accuracy. And then we also used the same process to identify themes across the 4 categories. These are the 4 categories we used for coding: perceptions of instructionally embedded assessments, use of the assessments to inform instruction, use of the assessment results, and perceptions of the online assessment system. Our findings in the first category, the perceptions of instruction-embedded assessments, we found that most of the participating teachers had positive perceptions of the model overall. The teachers liked the proximity of assessments to instruction and that they could assess multiple times during the school year to monitor students' progress. Some of the teachers felt that more frequent testing over a longer period of time was better for students' recall of the material and reduce test anxiety. And the teachers also appreciated that they could individualize the assessment experience to meet students' needs. And they described many different approaches to selecting the content, complexity, and timing of assessment for specific students. So in the words of one teacher, the assessment fits right into where you're teaching. The teachers also liked that the assessment allowed them the flexibility to teach students at their own academic level and provided a constant check on how students were performing throughout the year. We did have one teacher that felt that more frequent testing could actually be more stressful for some students. The teachers also reported that the logistics of assessing large caseloads of students could be challenging and that the instructionally embedded assessments required more time, organization, and monitoring on teachers' part than summative assessments did. Some of the teachers indicated that they often feel concerned about meeting testing requirements before a deadline. And in one case, a teacher told us that they are, quote, always terrified that they won't get it done on time. In the second category, the perceptions of instructional utility, the teachers in the focus groups reported that they used the instructionally embedded assessments to access skill progressions and to guide instruction, to identify areas of focus for individualizing student instruction, and to inform students' IEPs. When discussing the learning map that defines the complexity levels for each standard, one of the teachers told us that they can look at the map, find students' current level of skill, and identify the next steps for instruction. This quote from the teacher is, the student, quote, got this one, so now I need to be able to work up to the next one. The teachers in the focus groups also revealed 2 potential challenges to instructional utility. For example, one teacher found that the high level of detail in the learning maps could make it hard to know where to start instruction. And some teachers noted that while they used the instructionally embedded assessments to plan IEPs, they needed to combine the results with other sources of data to evaluate the IEPs. In the third category, the use of the results, the teachers reported using the assessment results to plan instruction throughout the school year. They also used results to monitor students' progress during the school year and across grade levels, and they found that the results were particularly helpful for demonstrating students' progress and achievement while talking to parents. One teacher told us that they like how the score report includes the skill progressions for each standard because you can tell the parent the student can do this, but now we're working towards this one. Unfortunately, we found some of the teachers that participated in the focus groups didn't know that they could access the results for the assessments on demand using the online interface. Some other teachers expressed a desire to receive additional training and resources specific to accessing and using the test results to improve instruction. Regarding the online assessment interface, the teachers in the focus groups had positive perceptions of the interface overall. They felt that it was a substantial improvement over previous designs of the interface. They reported that it was helpful for planning instruction, meeting the blueprint requirements, and selecting the right complexity levels for testing. One teacher said they liked that when you first log in, you can see the testing requirements the student has met right on the first page. The teachers in the focus groups also shared some suggestions for future enhancements to the interface. The recommendations that we received ranged from changes to the layout, more options for data visualization and reporting, and new resources to improve instructional planning. As with past designs, we continue to collect and act on teacher feedback like this to ensure that the online interface meets their needs going forward. Finally, when we analyzed the data across the 4 categories and the 4 research questions, we found that the teachers' experiences with the instructionally embedded assessment was very much impacted by differences in state and local guidance and assessment practices. So for example, teachers in states that had shorter testing windows were more likely to express concerns about meeting those testing deadlines. And teachers from states with very strict or very limited testing requirements sometimes had challenges in selecting content for instruction. The most common theme that we found was that teachers had better experiences with the instructionally embedded assessments if they felt strong support from colleagues at the school or district level. So in conclusion, based on our discussions with teachers that use the DLM instructionally embedded assessment system, we find it necessary that state and local education agencies work with educators and collect their feedback to inform the development of new innovative assessment systems. Specifically, it's important to consider the amount of assessment flexibility that the agency is willing to support and the amount of assessment individualization that is feasible for educators in the classroom. Education agencies should evaluate the available training and resources for teachers to ensure that they have access to the most important critical knowledge in order to use the assessment as it's intended. And the developers of new assessments should design the online assessment interfaces with input from educators to meet their specific needs. Because educators' needs may change over time, it's important to also periodically evaluate and adjust online interfaces as those needs change in the future. Finally, state and local education agencies need to evaluate the impact of assessment practices on teachers, including possible unintended consequences, in order to support teachers while implementing new assessment systems. For example, these assessment practices can include the amount of time teachers have to complete testing requirements, the amount of blueprint content that's available to meet the state testing requirements, and any supports that are in place to help teachers administer and use the assessment. That is the end of my presentation. I want to thank you. To learn more about the DLM assessments, visit dynamiclearningmaps.org, and then any questions about this research can be addressed to me or Dr. Amy Clark at the University of Kansas.